Writing is the most important entity you can possibly have before beginning anything. When I started to think about a sequel, I met with David Scarpa, and we sat and talked because I had certain parts in my head.
He said, essentially, I'd like you to start writing Gladiator 2, and of course, I was really excited. There was a lot of wrestling with all the specific challenges that go with having a movie that's 25 years later, having a movie where both the hero and the villain die at the very end. But the first movie, in its wisdom, teed up this character of Lucius. And that created the idea of telling the story almost like the Odyssey, in a sense. The Odyssey takes place many years after the end of the Iliad. So it's the idea of picking up these characters much further down the road and telling a story from a very different point of view.
The story they came up with, it was brilliant. It speaks to a deep human experience.
The idea that struck me as most interesting is the idea of somebody who has been cast to the wind and has fled from Rome and been cut off from everything. We wanted to create this kind of Shakespearean rage within Lucius, which is the idea that the most bitter thing that he could possibly find upon returning to Rome is that his mother is with the guy who killed his wife and destroyed his city.
Use your rage in my service, and you will have his head.
It drives him further from Rome, and so it gives him much further to go when he finally does this 180 over the course of the movie.
The gates of hell are open night and day. We are amused.
We knew we wanted to have these sort of emperor characters that were from history, but we didn't want to be so direct as to simply redo the first narrative. And so we chose instead the idea of setting up a bunch of possible nemeses.
Politics follows power.
So a lot of it was about these sort of red herrings or morally ambiguous characters that might go one way or the other, and then weaving our way towards realizing that Maximus is the greatest danger.
Rome must fall. You will be my instrument.
I will never be your instrument in this life or the next.
Scylla was always the emotional center of it. It's about these two people are torn apart from one another and how they become reunited. I think that's a really powerful driver in movies, is this idea of having two people that you know belong together and yet seeing them split apart.
Now that I've found you, I am not afraid.
One of the big questions was, how are we going to manifest Maximus in the movie? Because even if he's not there on screen, he's there dramatically. And how do you create his spirit within the movie without actually having him walking around whispering in Lucius' ear?
Take your father's strength. His name was Maximus, and I see him in you.
But ultimately, we wanted to deliver something that is not the same and yet is worthy of standing next to the first film.